and throw it in there with the
Yeah, he
jeans.
washes his clothes at the gym too. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, his underwear. I can't tell how many times I've seen your underwear with your name because you write your name in your
Oh, so
underwear.
your water bill's lower too. Okay, he's putting us on game.
He got,
How to, like,
he got his
afford
underwear
this
say Austin Tuesday.
Yeah.
And the Austin
Oh my God.
I was like, what the hell? I was like, man. Yeah, I was like, this dude going too far, man.
That's how you can get this place.
That's how you save your money. I'm up here buying new underwear and all this, wasting money
doing your own.
monthly, and I'm gonna figure it out. You're gonna see me pull up the gym at 4 a.m. with bags of clothes.
Yeah.
Washing some shit back there with a
There's
headphones
some weights
on.
in here somewhere.
Oh yeah, he got everything. I'm gonna turn him in though. No, this is Thai boxer. I don't think he's fighting anymore, but he would cross dress and he would come to the ring like with the dress on, dancing, flowers in his hair, and feminine as ever. And as soon as he crossed that threshold, got in the ring, it was go time, and he would obliterate his opponents. I'm talking about viciously. Viciously.
I went to Tahiti, and gender is not binary there.
Oh, I love that.
Like there, we just have man, woman here, and there it was. We were there for a photo shoot, and we had to use the boats of local fishermen to get to these little islands to do the photo shoots.
Yeah,
and their crew, they had men, as we know men to be, and then there were a couple of men that were wearing dresses, had long hair, some makeup.
Yeah,
bruh, strong as listen. They doing all the shit the quote unquote men were doing, and they had the full respect of the community. Yeah, and they existed in that respect.
Yeah, but it's so interesting because America seems to have this issue and stigma with it. And I always say, like my man posted it on the thing today, I'm like, I would love to see one of you that feels so strongly about this and say, this guy is feminine. Say it to this guy's face. Like, say it to his face. Go up to Sanchai and say, man, you look stupid in this dress. Why are you wearing a dress? Say it to Sanchai. You wouldn't do that. And I think, chime in, please.
Yeah.
I think male worthiness is so ingrained and based on how aggressive and tough and destructive, like little boys, right? You play with toy soldiers, get a truck, go punch something, or hit a ball. Don't cry. You know what I'm saying? Suck it up. Be a man. And you grow up thinking like, I need to do all these aggressive things because this is what men do. We're aggressive. You know what I mean? As opposed to, telling your friend. This was a couple years ago. I'm sure everyone saw this. These were 2 professional baseball players, and they were in the dugout, and one of them rested his head on the other guy's lap, and the other guy was like petting his head, and they went in. Just like the Jonathan Majors, Michael B. Jordan thing.
Yeah, the gender police.
Yeah, and
the masculinity police.
What do you call them? Gender police?
I call it masculinity police or just gender police. I feel like popular culture is always like, they're just fascinated and obsessed with like deciding the sexuality or gender of people based on their actions. And like gender is a performance, and that is like the root of gender studies, or like the hallmark of gender studies, that gender is a performance, and we are conditioned by society based on principles of heteronormativity. So heteronormativity is like white or like cis males act like this, cis females act like this, right? That's not based in biology. That's societally conditioned, that when you come out the womb, if you have a boy, then people are like, okay, I need to socialize this child as what society will view this child as a boy.
Yeah.
But that's all made up. There's no biological aspect of that.
Yeah.
So I just think it's funny that even now in 2023, we're still here where we're still like, oh, girls do this, boys do that. Yeah. And that's arbitrary. That's societally conditioned.
Yeah, I agree, but I also think there have been expectations that have been set for both, especially when it comes to romantic relationships, right?
Totally.
So if you are in a heterosexual relationship, and it's difficult to kind of break away from gender roles, if you will, because I know some of the most forward-thinking, progressive, women who still, like, they can do everything for themselves. They can make their own money. They can buy their own home. They can do all of these things. But they still want a dude that can protect, can provide, so to speak. Like most of them would say, like, if if we get in a situation where there's trouble, I'd like to think that my man will be there for me. Yeah. Like, I don't want him to be running in front of me.
Right.
Yeah. I totally wholeheartedly agree.
And that's whether he wear a dress or not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's 2023 and we talk about these roles and whatnot, but it always boils down to when you're in a relationship, certain roles women expect a man to fill.
Now,
as a man.
I'm curious, and this is going to seem like a silly question, but like, how do you know that those roles are expected?
This is from my experience.
Yeah. It comes out it comes out in various ways.
Right.
I'm not speaking for everyone.
Yeah.
I'm speaking for the women that I know. I'm speaking from experience and conversations that I've had with women who have had the opportunity to be with a good man, but he's lacking in those areas that would be considered stereotypically masculine.
Yeah.
What are those areas?
Know what I'm saying? To provide, to protect.
To provide, to protect.
Yeah.
Well, and that's deep. The whole provide and protect thing, because that's a deep rooted thing. But we can make it very, very surface and say women are attracted to bad boys, right? The whole classic, why do women like the guy? And I'm just making this really cliche, but the guy that pulls up on a motorcycle with a tank top and cigarette in his mouth.
But
I know. I'm just that's a cartoon version.
That's white.
Every time I use that example, I think like, I don't know, brothers pulling up on motorcycles with cigarettes in their mouth like that. But you get the gist of what I'm saying. A bad boy, right? You know what I mean? Women are attracted to, like, well, if we talk about the black community, women are attracted to thugs, goons,
you have to be
whatever.
careful. You can't just say in the black community women are attracted to. When you say that, you're speaking about women that you know, or you.
I'm speaking about women that I know. I'm speaking about women that I know. I'm not generalizing. Thank you, Alzo.
I'm trying to save you.
Don't come for me. Alzo, save me. Don't come for me.
Many versus
I wouldn't even say. I would just say some.
Yeah.
I mean it like that.
In your experience.
In my experiences, and listen, I understand. I remember I went to go see Farrakhan speak. I've seen Farrakhan speak a multitude of times. I think he's fascinating. And I remember him saying, hey, men, and he specified, he was like, black and white men, you should not feel some type of way when a woman is attracted to an athlete or an entertainer or a man with power or a man with money. And his explanation behind that was that genetically women are just engineered to look at a man, right?
Oh,
and
God.
Yeah, I know, right? Listen, he said genetically women are engineered to look at a man and say, can you protect me? Can you provide? The things that he said, right? Or can you protect me? See, I'm dragging you in this also. Can you provide, right? And those things are manifested through a man having a certain amount of money or a certain sort of cachet and power. Because then, right, unconsciously they look at you and say, okay, he can take care of my babies if I have babies. He can keep a roof over my head. He can do the things that I need him to do, right? And if we fast forward to 2023, I'm not saying every woman, right? But if we fast forward to 2023 and we hear things like what happened with Ilyana Vincent and what was the girl's name when said that she wouldn't date a bus driver?
Oh yeah,
what's her name?
Who said that?
She's a newscaster.
Newscaster, and she was like, Ilyana was like, would you date a bus driver? And she was like, he better own the bus company, right?
Oh, God.
That mentality of, hey, you got to have your paper together, you got to have your money together, you got to be doing something. I don't want to date a dude that's broke. I want a guy that can fly me here, take care of me, do this. I mean, it's a thing that's very relevant right now.
And
I think that's interesting that you bring that up. Okay, well, I think Farrakhan was flawed in that genetic assumption. I don't think that is supported by science. But I think that, there's a lot of conversation now about what is the man's role, so to speak. Like, there's been a lot of like ideological discussion that like men feel like they don't have a place in society, like because women are actually making more money than ever. We are attending college at higher rates than men, and we are excelling in our careers, right? Yeah. And people are putting off childbirth longer and longer. Women are deciding like, hey, like I don't want to like shorten my career by having a child earlier. So things are shifting culturally heavily. So I feel like now we're at this place where like do we still subscribe to these gender norms? Because like that need for protection, like if we're getting degrees and getting jobs and like financially supporting ourselves, especially have you heard what's going on in like South Korea?
No, what?
So there's a huge movement of women that are no longer, they don't want to have kids, they don't want to get married anymore because South Korea has a very patriarchal society, similar to ours, but it's been very misogynistic, and also there's a lot of sexual violence in South Korea as well. So there's a feminist movement going on, and the birth rate in South Korea is plummeting as well. There's a population crisis because women are deciding they no longer want to be married, because in South Korea, when you're married, all of your autonomy, all of your individual identity is gone now as a woman.
So, do you think that that's an extreme reaction to to an issue that's been occurring for so long? Like them saying, okay, you know what? We don't want to get married. We don't want to have kids. And this is how it's going to be now. Do you think you think the reaction is extreme, or you think it's warranted and it's a good thing that's happening?
I think it's extremely warranted.
Yeah.
I'm very much with it because even though I am not living in South Korea, I feel like I can identify with their struggle a lot. I know you mentioned women want like this like bad guy and like super tough and like seems like they can protect you. Honestly,
I said some
or
women.
some women.
I didn't
Okay,
say
yes,
women.
or
Don't
some
come for me.
women. Some women you would experience. Actually, for me, actually, those all symbolize to me that I should probably not date that person.
Yeah.
Because to me, in my experience, the more a man subscribes to gender norms, the more I'm put into a box, and I can no longer be anything other than like a heteronormative woman to him. I can't like, you know, it boxes me in, and there's like certain expectations, as you just said too, that I think if you're subscribing to that brand of masculinity, you actually have these expectations of women to behave a certain way. And then when they meet me, they're going to be surprised because I don't behave that way.
Well, would you go ahead?
Well, I think there's a spectrum to masculinity, if you will, where like there's very toxic masculinity, right? I'm talking, abusive, narcissistic behavior, manipulative behavior, all of that. But then there's I don't think my lady should have to take the trash out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'd rather, I don't want to have to be concerned about my lady pumping gas late at night at the gas station, having to be aware. So maybe I could just pump, if her gas tank is on E, I go fill it up. So she didn't have to worry about that. You know what I'm saying? And so there's certain things if we go out to dinner, of course it's traditional and it's, cliche if you will, but ask a woman out on a date, I'm going to pay. I still open doors for women. You know what I'm saying? Even if they're not my girl.
So what if the woman doesn't want that? What if she doesn't want that?
Yeah. I'm curious about that.
No, if she doesn't want it, I don't do it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But
you
that's
lead
my
with that.
default.
Gotcha.
And for you, what's driving that behavior? Is it obligation, or do you feel like you're doing it because you care and you care about your partner?
It's completely conditioned.
Okay,
It's conditioned
conditioned.
on the way that I was raised, but the way that I was raised, those things symbolize respect.
Right.
And so I feel like I am exhibiting respect for the woman. And it's not, I'm not doing these things saying that she can't. Yeah. I'm doing these things to say that, you know what? Don't concern yourself with it. Yeah. Let me relieve you of this burden. Yeah. So you can have the freedom to do other things with that energy.
Now, Michelle, if he explained that to you in that way, let's say that you guys were out on a date, right? Just role playing here, and he did all that, opened the door for you. I don't want you to take out the trash. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. The normal.
But I wouldn't say it like that. I just take the trash out.
Okay, you just do it.
Hey,
just bear with my example here.
No,
okay?
bro, but you using me.
Would you accept his explanation? What he just gave?
It would be challenging because I think for me, relationships should operate this way. I think people should know where their partner needs help and what areas are challenging for them. And that should be outside of gender norms. Because what if your partner is really good? If you're dating a woman, a female partner, is really good at taking out the trash and getting gas, and there's other areas that are not traditionally attached to her gender that she struggles in. That maybe that's where she really needs the help.
But relationships are about communication.
Yes,
as
it
well,
is.
right?
It is. But sometimes people don't communicate.
No,
in relationships too.
but y'all been using me. Y'all using me as the example.
Okay, sorry.
Y'all
Yes.
can't be switching lanes.
Okay, you're right. Yes.
Because you was like, if he, when I say me, and he'd be like, oh, I'm talking about everybody else. So
Okay, I should say rhetorical, like
Yeah.
not your actual relationship. Yeah, in any relationship, I
mean-
think people should be talking about where their needs are and what aspects do they need help in.
This is very interesting and layered because I'm looking at it from a few different points of views. I feel like, listen, and make no mistake about it, men have been responsible for marginalizing women and doing a whole slew of things. So a lot of the things that are happening, a lot of the things that are occurring right now, we deserve. But on the flip side, sometimes as a man, especially when things are shifting the way they are now, right? Where you have women that are like working, making more money, doing things, can take out their own trash, do all that. This and that. Right? We're like this. We're like, okay, so wait a minute. The way I was raised, I was told to open the door for you all the time and take out the trash and be a man. But now things are shifted. So you're telling me I shouldn't take out the trash and I shouldn't try to focus on. We feel like we're just on this teeter-totter. And I'm like, okay.
But I don't feel it's that absolute either, right? Like when you use the example of taking out the trash, or when I brought it up, it's not as if as soon as we move in together, I'm supplying her with a list of things that these are the things that I'm going to do because I'm supposed to do them.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I see the trash needs to be taken out. I'm gonna continue to take it out.
Yeah.
And then if she says something like, babe, you don't have to take the trash out all the time. I could do it. Or if she takes the trash out, I'm not gonna be like, don't you do that. That is my job.
Yeah.
So that, to me, that feels like healthy communication. I feel like I have a good example where I felt like there was some gendered like behavior going on with a person I was dating a while ago. So I'm not a cook. Like, I'm not good at cooking. This is not a skill set for me. And I was dating someone several years ago, and we'd kind of alternate, okay, this weekend, like, you're in charge of food, and this weekend I am. So when it was my weekend, I just like Uber Eats and caviar, whatever, ordered it.
Yeah.
And when it was his weekend, he would cook, but he built up a resentment that I didn't cook the weekends that were mine.
Yeah.
And I was like, is the purpose so that we eat that weekend, or is it that like,
Right.
or is it that like I
Right.
should fulfill this role?
Bro, are you hungry?
And I knew he was, and I did know he came from a very traditional upbringing, so I
Yeah.
couldn't help but feel like that was like a gendered expectation that like when it's my weekend, I should be like the meal doesn't count if I didn't prepare it myself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think it's like, his background, like he's from the South, and like he is used to women preparing food, I think.
Yeah.
So I felt like that was an unfair, like, gendered expectation that, like, okay, to me it's like, if I know you don't like cooking, then what does it matter? For example, my dad too, my mom and dad, I would say they switch gender roles all the time.
Yeah.
Because my mom, she likes going to Home Depot. She loves Home Depot. She likes gardening. She's very hands-on.
Yeah.
She'll come back from Home Depot sometimes, and she's gonna kill me that I'm saying this, but she'll be like, oh, Michael, like, all of the men at Home Depot were there helping their wives. And my dad would be like, okay, like, my dad's like, okay, like, my dad is not.
It's not what I do.
He just,
Yeah.
he
Sounds
helps
like you
out.
know you
Yeah.
married.
He helps out in other ways, and he's like really hands-on in other ways, but like, this might not be his area.
Yeah.
But now he's being like measured by other men at Home Depot.
Yeah.
I feel like that's sometimes a little bit unfair. And I think that's where the difference is between like, okay, this is a gendered expectation versus like, you're doing it out of the kindness. You do want to actually help. And you're communicating with your partner with where you need help, or where they need help.
Like in your example of the guy you dated who's from the South, yes, I agree, it's completely gendered.
Well, thank
right?
you for confirming that, because
yeah.
at the time I was much younger, and I was like, is this gendered?
No, it's
Yes.
completely gendered, but I also think it's another layer too, like, because I was raised in the South, and cooking is associated with affection, right?
I
And
see.
so if this dude, like on the surface level, in a very pedestrian way, is like, my woman's supposed to cook for me, and my woman don't cook for me, then I can't be with her. That's the very surface level. But then another layer is like his mother probably cooked, right? And that's associated with love and affection. And so if you didn't cook for him, then maybe he saw that as, oh, she don't really rock with me in the way that I rock with her because I express my love through cooking for her. And if she can't reciprocate that, then maybe that means she don't love me like I love her.
Right.
That's really well said.
That's well said.
That's really well said. And that goes right back to what I said. Sometimes men feel like they're on this teeter-totter because he's dating a progressive woman like yourself that's like, listen, at the end of the day, we eating.
Yeah.
Who cares if I cook it or if somebody deliver it? We eating.
And I had good taste. I was picking good
You
places.
probably ordering the
I picked good places.
I mean, she ordered from Caviar. She already
I
told you.
was picking
Yeah.
good places because I appreciated that he was hand preparing food, so I knew I had to come correct when it was my turn.
But he's feeling the way Alzo just
I mean, I don't
described.
know. I mean,
We're assuming
baby,
he may
yeah.
be feeling
Yeah,
that way where it's
yeah.
like, but he doesn't know how to express that.
Yeah.
He doesn't know how to say, he's not going to sit down and say, oh, you know, I'm from the South. You know this.
Yeah,
and my
yeah.
mom made meals for me and I associated that with love. And maybe, Michelle, just maybe, I don't feel like you love me because you're not cooking, you're ordering from Caviar. And they're not preparing it with love. So maybe you should order it, unbox it, and then put it back together and bring it. He's not going to say, he doesn't know. You know, it's almost as if, and I'm probably going to catch heat for this, but it's almost as though you, as a man, you have to keep up with the shifting culture and the new thing going on. And you're like, hey, what's going on now? Hey, man, you know women making more money than us now, right? So we got to be okay with that. Oh, I didn't know that. We got to be okay with that? Yeah. You know you shouldn't be taking out the trash all the time, right? You know, I told Alzo not to take out the trash, but he just stuck on taking out the trash. You know, it's like we got to keep up with all these new things. And we're like, oh, man, I don't even know where I'm supposed to, because I was told this. I was reared and I was told this for so long. And now that I'm in my 30s and 40s, you're telling me that it's another way. And sometimes an old dog don't learn new tricks.
But the easiest remedy to that, which is the most simple remedy to that, which is not easy, is to gauge in a level of critical thinking.
I know.
Right? To where you ask yourself, why am I acting this way? Why do I think the way that I think? Why do I believe what I believe?
Yes.
And it's because this is what I was brought up to believe. Like where I was raised, I got whoopings, like real whoopings with a belt, where I had to kneel at the side of the bed like I was praying, and my pops, why? There's no resentment there, right? And I feel like, you know, it made me who I am today, but I'm not going to bring my children up in this way because I've exercised a level of critical thinking to recognize that just because I was raised this way doesn't mean I have to raise my children this way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so, I say it's simple, but it ain't easy.
It ain't easy.
Because you got to face some real ugly shit.
People don't like to face, and people don't like to ask these questions because I think some of the answers are uncomfortable.
1000%.
And they're not ready to reconcile or really like sit and digest and process like these things that you just took for face value your whole life.
Yes.
And then what's crazy is you confuse like the things you took for face value, you confuse those with logic and reason.
Yes.
You know what
my
I'm
God.
saying?
Yes.
Like, what do you mean?
Logical.
This don't make sense. What you
Yes.
do? What you mean you not cooking? That don't even make sense. Like
You'd rather hang on to the old antiquated way of thinking and go down with the ship.
Bruh, I'm gonna give you an example. Like I don't in a relationship, and I still deal with this. I don't like if the person you're dating says, "Hey, will you go to this thing with me, to this play?"
Yeah.
Like, or let me scratch that. Example, say, "Hey, I'm asking my boo, will you go to this play with me?"
Yeah.
And if she doesn't want to go, I don't want her to go.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me to put someone.
Oh, me and you are the same.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh my God, I'm the same way.
I don't want you to fake
enough
going.
time.
No.
Yeah, like if you don't want to be there,
Right.
like let's keep it 100.
I
Like,
care
don't
about
come,
you,
yeah.
so I don't want to put you in a
Yes.
position where you're gonna be uncomfortable,
Yeah.
which then gonna make me uncomfortable. It's because that don't make sense to me.
Yeah.
But people always like, sometimes you gotta compromise. And
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Don't you think sometimes, for the sake of the relationship, you got to take an L on some things?
But I need to
because
know what
your partner needs to know that you're willing to take an L.
no, not for that reason. No,
I don't
see,
agree
you
for
had me
that.
halfway there.
I don't agree for that reason either.
Not for
Yeah,
that reason.
I don't.
Because if it's for that reason, you with the wrong partner.
I agree. I think
Okay,
so
well,
too.
maybe I worded it incorrectly.
Yeah.
Not take the L, but you need to. They need to know that you're willing to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation for them sometimes.
Well, go ahead.
I just labeled it taking an L, but I worded it incorrectly.
So, and I know we're going to talk about non-monogamy here.
1000%.
So I feel like that feels like compulsory monogamy, which compulsory monogamy is like the default monogamy where you feel like you have to be monogamous because society has deemed that the only appropriate relationship structure.
Yeah.
So I feel like in that, a lot of things are done because of obligation. So then it becomes like, oh, I sacrificed this thing, and now you need to sacrifice something too, so I can tell that we're in this sacrifice
Together.
monogamy together.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I felt, in my previous monogamous relationships, that never sat well with me, that we were doing things out of obligation and because like someone told us that this is what a boyfriend does or this is what a girlfriend does. And I think that was part of the reason why I moved towards non-monogamy eventually, because a lot of the principles of non-monogamy were less about obligation and doing things more by choice and because we want to be here. Yeah.
Okay, with that being said, can you give me your definition of non-monogamy?
So for me, non-monogamy is when two partners or more,
Sorry.
you are upfront about it, that you're both deciding that you're not going to subscribe to monogamy, and it doesn't devalue the relationship, and the relationship could be whatever you want it to be. There's various forms of non-monogamy. Like I could go through, because I identify as polyamorous, but there's various forms of non-monogamy.
Yeah.
But basically, there was this time where people were like ethical non-monogamy. Non-monogamy is ethical. If you're not transparent about your non-monogamy, you're just cheating.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel. So it's just the decision to not subscribe to monogamy as we know it in society.
And so you're not of the mindset that you could possibly get into a situation that you label as non-monogamous with someone else, and you make that decision that you're doing that, and then you start to catch feelings, and you start to feel like, you know what, I kind of don't want anybody else touching you or breathing on you or doing these things like I do with you. So I don't want to be non-monogamous anymore. I want to be monogamous. You don't fear that might happen?
So I don't fear that will happen because I'm really, I've done a lot to come to this decision to be non-monogamous. I've done a lot of reading. There's a lot of great books on it.
Yeah.
I feel like when you are non-monogamous or you're in a non-monogamous relationship, I feel like I don't have to feel like that because I don't believe I own anyone.
Yeah.
And I also don't equate how much I feel and how close I feel to someone with my ability to only be with them.
Yeah.
And I think that makes my relationships feel more meaningful because I know that, yes, this person, we both can be with other people, but we are deciding to still be with each other even as we are with other people. And that's a cognizant choice versus we're here because we are together and we're in a relationship and it's like, oh, now I have to break up, it's not, it moves outside the realm of obligation, and it's more about, okay, every time we meet and every time we decide to continue this relationship, it's because we want to.
Yeah.
It's a choice. I don't feel like I have to because we're married and now I committed to you in this way, this paper told us that this is what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I totally understand
So
that.
that's how I feel, just intellectually. I think that's just how I feel about it.
Alzo, if you have the floor.
For what?
I thought you had a question.
No, I don't have a question.
All right, so I do. So obviously that's, you being
It all
non-monogamous.
makes sense to me.
It all makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. Obviously you being non-monogamous affords you and gives you that the ability to feel comfortable knowing that both of you have come together, not because it's forced, not because of obligation. Do you think in the future, after you've done that and experienced it a number of times, do you think you could go towards a monogamous relationship and be like, okay, you know what? Now I feel like I've mastered the fact that I'm not doing this because I feel obligated to be with you. I know that we're doing this because we're making a choice. I understand how to operate in that space Because from what you just said, I understand that sometimes when you're in a relationship, it goes from wanting to be with the person to feeling like, oh, I gotta be here. Because I've been in that situation. Where I'm like, well, man, I gotta do this. I gotta see this through. You know what I mean? And you lose yourself in some way, right? Do you think you could eventually go back to that, or do you stay?
Hold on.
Go ahead.
What's interesting, why I giggled a little bit, is like your question is rooted in the presupposition that monogamy is default, like that is the natural way.
If it sounds like that, my apologies. That's not the way I meant.
But that's what I'm saying.
I'm getting to a certain point.
But the fact that it wasn't conscious is what I'm saying. Like, because
it's so subconscious.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
I caught that too.
No. Let me explain.
And this is not a knock on you.
No. I totally understand what the both of you are saying. No, I worded it that way because you said you became non-monogamous because you felt as though there was a heavy pressure on obligation.
Yeah.
Feeling obligated. So you felt being non-monogamous would free you of obligation, right? And I said I understood that, but I also feel like you can be monogamous and not feel obligated. But I worded my question that way because you being non-monogamous was your way of freeing yourself from the shackles of obligation.
Yeah.
That's why I said, well, do you think after you free yourself from the shackles?
Shackles
is heavy, bro.
Hey, it's a white man. Hey, listen, don't laugh. I don't want no white man laughing.
This is a good question.
When you said shackles, I was like, oh,
this is a good question.
He bringing the preacher.
And also, when I just want to clarify, when I say free myself from obligation, it's not that I don't want, like, I actually have a lot of love to give, and I'm very committed to my partners. I have 2 partners, very committed to them.
Yeah.
And for me, it's not like free myself from obligation for fear of commitment. It's just like the compulsory, like expectation, unsaid expectation that because I'm your partner, I'm your girlfriend, whatever, there's like this unwritten rules of like girlfriends do this, right? And it's also partially because I'm autistic too, right? Like I don't do well with a lot of the social norms. And I actually, after I was diagnosed, I found out that a large percentage of autistic people are non-monogamous and prefer untraditional relationship styles, which I understand why. But for me, it's not only that the obligations are out too, but I personally don't feel like there's any one person that can meet all of your needs. I don't think that's possible. Yeah. And I think you're setting yourself up for failure, so to speak, when you commit to someone and you think that, like, people acknowledge that people change in relationships, but there's this assumption that you're both going to change in ways that are still exactly compatible to each other, or like
that's always been silly to me,
right? Like in hand and foot, like we're both going to be changing, and like it's just always going to work while you change and I change. There's infinite variables, right? And I feel like it puts an insane amount of pressure on one individual to meet like your needs for affection, sexuality, companionship, like someone to go do things with. It's just like quite hard. And I see that a lot of relationships tend to like fray under that pressure to be everything to one person, because remember, on the flip side, it's taboo. You can't seek that out elsewhere, especially if it's like someone of the opposite sex. You can't seek that. You're only allowed to seek things in platonic realm. Yeah. Like if we're talking about traditional monogamy, I do think there's forms of monogamy where both people can be honest and be like, this is the type of monogamy that I want, and it might veer from society's monogamy. But if you don't have that conversation, it always defaults to these roles. I feel like every relationship I've had has defaulted to this, like monogamous ones. Yeah.
I think that I agree. And I think about, I remember, in college, you sit down and talk with some of the OGs in the black community, and they practice polygamy, from their belief system. And sometimes you be like, bro, you just want to fuck a bunch of women.
Yeah. And polygamy is different than polyamory.
Yeah. And
a lot of people conflate those two.
And then this is true. And it's like when you are thinking about polyamory, and what you brought up earlier about no one person can be all things for you, right? if if you have, when people think of polyamory, they just think of sex.
They always think of it's not just that.
They just think of many people.
Yeah.
Many people. Some
They
people
always think it's that.
just think of sex.
Yeah.
But then there's also, emotional needs that are met. But then you would think in a healthy monogamous relationship, people would allow for that, right? They would allow, okay, if my man, is not this to me, or my woman is not this to me, then they should allow them to go find that somewhere else and still be confident in their position in the relationship. That's how it should be.
It should be probably us.
I've dated a couple of women that this is kind of a tangent, but I've dated a couple of women that have told me, one in these specific words, and the other was just another iteration of this, was like, you're a dude. You like women. If you step out, you step out. But protect my heart and protect my health.
That's like the black version of non-monogamy. It's the This is where, and we could talk, this is where I'm going to get into the respectability politics here.
Let's
because
do it.
I feel like that is the arrangement version of non-monogamy, where like, people assume like a lot of your favorite celebrities, whatever, they must have an arrangement, right? And it's like, why can't this be public, one? And like, I just can't help but think about the Will Smith, August Alsina thing.
Yeah.
Like, Will Smith and Jada likely are open, right? Like, this is like something that has been in the zeitgeist forever. Like,
Forever.
Everyone has thought it. We know it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can't help but think that they probably felt pressure to have false outrage about the August thing, because of the respectability politics that Black people don't want to be seen tweaking with the platform of marriage and the traditional aspect of it, because it's embarrassing. And the comments where people are like, oh, she embarrassed Will, like that's all like it's just misogynistic and gendered norms of like, Will must be embarrassed. Will might know, but he might have to pretend that this is a big deal because of like upholding this kind of moral identity.
But I don't know if it, maybe it's on some level it was gendered, but the public only has what they see.
Of course, yes.
And so you could make those assumptions that Will probably knew or didn't, and but he went up there and slapped.
I was
Chris Rock,
just about to say that.
We see. What they're showing us.
Yeah, you're right.
Like they're not showing us the complex layers that you may be assuming.
You're right. Yeah.
And the pressure of the public, the pressure of that affects every and any one.